is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood. Episode 26, Reunion. In this episode, I really thought the word reunion was going to refer to their dad. What do I call him? Mushroom stool? Hemp stool. But no, this is about Al's body reuniting for a moment with Ed. And I was not prepared for this, and I don't like it at all. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this episode. Hi, Max. How you doing? So, there is so much going on here, guys. What shall I start off with? I kind of want to start off with King Bradley, because truly that is a weird one. King Bradley's entire story has come as a shock. I don't know why I was so certain that he was like made from nothing. I think I just figured a homunculus was, I think I had it sort of like conflated mentally with a golem that's like made out of clay. Like I think it's from Jewish myths, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like basically a being that's made out of clay and then like animated somehow and brought to life. And I think I had that sort of paired together somehow in my mind incorrectly. So I have been assuming this entire time that King Bradley has never been human at all. And apparently he was at one time, and now he considers himself to be something more superior, which does sort of like explain how he has been able to like pull off being human for as long as he has. He apparently like still ages like people do. So he's got enough human characteristics that it's not like detectable. And I'm guessing we don't totally know how his slicing ability works, do we? Correct me if I'm wrong, but so far we haven't seen him be able to like change form in any way. I've been sort of assuming that the slicing thing has to do with that. But if I recall, when he's fighting that terrorist in the very, very first episode, and I say terrorist because that's what they would call him, but clearly that guy had some fucking real reasons to be pissed. When he is fighting that guy, the dude gets like cut before Bradley is really anywhere near him. So maybe it doesn't have to do with like transforming himself. Like, you know, I guess I had it sort of in my head that he could do something like Lust, who could make her hands into knives. And when I really think about it, it didn't seem like he needed to be too close by in order to do it. So maybe that's not it after all. I don't know. Damien says that's why Greed was so freaked out by Wrath. He's so wildly different from the rest of them. That makes sense. Yeah, so we find out that he was like part of this sort of like a leadership retreat on steroids, a leadership retreat from hell, where he and other boys who were deemed potential candidates were taken away from like regular society. We don't actually see how he was like. The story begins in a room full of like infants, and it's all sort of abstract at that point, but the vibe is that he was born and handed over immediately to this group of people. And I'm really curious exactly how he was born. Like, did the woman know who she was handing her kid to? Did she have a choice in the matter at all? Was she just being used as a sort of incubator? Was he stolen, perhaps, and it wasn't even like they legitimately collected him? Just a lot of questions initially for me about how he was selected that we sort of skip over, and we may get that information eventually. We may not. It doesn't for me right now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing we don't get that info. I'm just expressing some curiosity on it because I do always want to know more about how that process goes, as you all know. And so it's him and a bunch of other, it's all men. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it does seem like everybody in this program that he's explaining are male. And he is being put through his paces in terms of actual education as well as physical training that he is having to go through. And I was sort of waiting for a moment of him having to kill a rival or something. There's a scene in one of the Marvel movies, and I can't actually even remember which one it is now, but where Black Widow is thinking back on her time at the sort of training school that she went to, and they fight with other girls, they're put up against each other and expected to actually kill one another if they get the opportunity to do so. And, if the girl dies, it's just sort of well, she's been cleared out of the program because she couldn't hack it. And I sort of thought that was going to be one of the moments where he kind of comes up against whether or not he wants to be part of this. But he just sort of has a moment almost like that, where there's a guy who's been injured. He stabs him in the shoulder, I think, or the side. Someplace non-lethal, it seemed to me, but maybe it's meant to be implied that it was lethal. And one of the people who is sort of running this place tells him not to worry because that kid was just put here to help Bradley along his path. And it's interesting because the way that guy phrases it sort of makes it sound like you aren't a peer to a lot of the people in this program with you. They are put here as fodder, is sort of the vibe I got from that. But I couldn't tell if it's more oh, he would have said they're here for your advancement to whomever came out on top in that fight, which that might be it also. Oh my God. Kyle says, well, a baby is the easiest kind of person to steal. They're very light. Damien says, very likely easy to say, sorry, the child didn't make it to a parent. Yeah, I suppose so. I just can't imagine not wanting to see the baby, even if if I gave birth and they told me the baby was dead, I would still want to see it. But, I guess you could just tell people whatever you want because Lord knows people who are at a disadvantage, they don't get a say in practically anything. So we could just say, no, we already cremated him. No, those are definitely his ashes, I promise, But also, how would they select the people from whom they steal the babies? Do they go any boy child that's born to a family that can't take care of him or won't put up as much of a fight if he's gone? Or do they have parameters genetically that they look for? Because the kids don't all look alike. I will say that there's a real variety of hair colors and eye colors, and his hair is certainly the standout as black in the group. And I wondered if that was meant to be part of what showed him as standing apart, or if it's just for the sake of the show for us to be able to tell him apart. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it's through the shoulder. That's right. I'm watching the scene right now where he stabs this kid in sword fight, and he doesn't really look entirely sure about whether this was cool. And every time that one of these like creeps comes up, they always have like a real like just a smile on their face that feels really sinister. And they often have glasses on that do that thing where they reflect so that you can't see their eyes. And it's really interesting. And I know I brought this up, you know, in the notorious episode of the Chimera, but the use of lens flare, that's what I'm going to call it. I know that lens flare is a real thing that means something very different, but honestly, it feels so appropriate for this effect that I'm going to say that. It's either used in this way where it's meant to sort of show that somebody is dishonest. And a lot of times, like, the science thing is very specific because people who wear glasses are smart. So we're going to always put those together. And we are trying to also sort of hide our eyes, be misleading, or just not let you see too much. And then there's the other opposite side of this where it could be, you're so cool, you know? It's always sort of meant to be you're hiding something, whether it's you're hiding your emotions, you're hiding your intentions, but it can also be like, oh, you can't see his eyes because this guy is just so calm and cool and collected, man. He's not like you and me. He's just like a level above in terms of sheer coolness. And it works pretty well for that also. You know, it's not always meant to necessarily be frightening. It's just sort of meant to like make it clear that somebody is operating on a different level of some kind. Whatever that level might be is determined in context. But I just think it's sort of interesting to watch how it's deployed in all of these different situations. Let's see. Damien says TV Tropes calls it scary shiny glasses. I like lens flare better. Like I said, I know it's a real thing, but like, come on. B. Moore says scary competence, which is good or bad depending if they're on your side. Michael says like the Squirtle Squad. I do not know. Is that like Squirtles are Pokemons, but I don't know about the squad. But are they cool? Do they have sunglasses? I'm assuming they're not scary scientists, so they're probably cool. But anyway, so yeah, these scientists, like, they are not hiding the fact that this is all sort of experimentation. Bradley even says, like, we were all called potential Führers, and I believed that it was going to be me, and that I just would have to do whatever it took to make it actually happen. And then we hear the sounds of, like, screaming, and it says, like, in the subtitles, transmutation sounds, which is always so funny to me. This hand sort of hits, covered in blood. There's all this awful screaming, and a drop of blood hits the ground. It looks like blood. It's very clear pretty quickly that it's not. That's like a failed philosopher's stone. And they say, what a shame, another failure. And then they lead Bradley in, and it's really kind of hilarious because he knows some shit is fucked up right now, but they won't tell him what's going on. They won't be like, oh, we're about to perform this like experiment on you and hopefully you'll make it through. They just leave the door of the body closet wide open so that he sees all of the people in there who are like all the corpses. Do they want him upset? Like, is this passive aggressive, or are they just that bad at their jobs? And then we see this doctor who has a big gold tooth smiling and coming up to him with this syringe. And then, as this dude comes up to him with the syringe, big fucking smile and lens flare thing happening, we hear Father say, "You are the 12th candidate," and the camera lifts, and it really fucking looks like Hempstool. I am pretty sure. It seems very much like it's him. And I just really want this guy to be boiled in oil and rolled in confectionery sugar and then fed to like wild animals. I just truly, this man needs a violent, vicious death. Painful. A real bad one. I like want to select like particularly a bad one. And I don't need to get like sadistic. We don't need to go too far with like a torture or anything, but I don't want it to be too quick. I don't want like no beheadings. We got to do something where he's really going to feel it. There's going to be at least like a minute of him going, I can't bear this pain. I need that much. So I just want to put that on the menu here, guys, that I would like to order Hempstool's drawn out painful death for a treat. Thank you. So, yeah, this dude's like, do you have what it takes to become my fury? My wrath? And then this kid gets injected. And Bradley says, a philosopher's stone is made from the life force of countless human beings and contains their souls. Once injected into the bloodstream, it begins to take over its new host and the human body tries to reject it. My body was repeatedly destroyed from the inside out and then rebuilt by the stone. The only options I had were to die or overcome its power. I chose the latter. And we have him waking up and all of these doctors hovering over him, delighted with their work as he is like sweating and traumatized. But the way that like Fuhrer Bradley is talking about this is not like he regrets it. That's what's sort of weird about this. I see him as a victim. He was brainwashed from a child. And because he's a victim, it makes sense that when you're going to brainwash someone, the point is for them not to realize that they've been brainwashed, right? So, of course, he's going to talk about it like he doesn't have regrets because this is all he has ever known and he wouldn't regret it. Like, this is an honor. He's the one who made it through. That was the whole thing that he wanted to do. So that follows, but I was like watching this and wanting there to be something in the story of him being like, you know, there were days when I didn't think I had it in me, but then I did. You know, indications at all, anywhere along the line, that he felt like maybe this was the wrong thing. And there isn't. It just doesn't ever come up that he really feels like wrong was done to him. Even in that moment where he's like, wait, what's going on here? Are those guys all dead? He wants the answer, and he is scared and upset, and he knows he's being put in this like position where he could die. But even remembering that moment, Bradley doesn't blame any of the people in the room. He's not like angry as he's talking about it, which, considering that he's wrath, you would think that would be like an emotion that comes up, unless he's just restraining it because he's so used to restraining it all the time. I don't know. But yeah, he sits up and he's shaking and sweating, and then he like his hand, because he had one hand over his face, he drops his hand and you can see the tattoo on his eye. And it's, I guess he can feel that his eye has changed. I don't know how much he can tell what's going on. Like, does he see normally through that eye? I am assuming that eye functions because he's pretty eager to take his eye patch off when he's in private fighting with Ling. But it might be that he wants to take it off just because he's like, oh, do you want to see how you should be really scared of me because I'm not just like a person? Maybe that's all. But I sort of like thought that it was still a usable eye. So I'm just curious about how he knows that something's happened. Does it just feel different? Like, you know, does it see slightly different than the other eye? I don't know. But yeah, this is a really like wild story to just tell fucking Colonel Mustard. Like, he's just telling him all of this. Countless souls had battled for dominance within me, and only the most wrathful ones survived. I can't tell you if this remaining soul was one of those within the Philosopher's Stone, or if it's the one I'd carried since I was born. I doubt that I'll ever know. What? Like, imagine not knowing if the soul that you're wandering around with dominating is that, like, yours or not. How wild. And, like, it was sort of interesting because, okay, so the thing that drops out of the kid in the first attempt, I had thought that this was their attempt to make a Philosopher's Stone, and it failed. But was that the actual Philosopher's Stone and the body rejected it so it fell out? We never saw a Philosopher's Stone that was like flexible and almost liquid. It's not fully liquid. It looks almost like, you guys know those, do you remember those bath beads that were filled with oil that were so popular in like the 90s? They were like used as decoration in everybody's bathrooms, and they would get this coating of dust on them because they were oily, and that attracts dust. So they would like wind up looking really, but if you got them like soft enough, the coating that kept the oil inside would loosen and become really pliable, and you could like roll them around and play with them until they exploded, you know? And that's what it looked like to me, honestly. So I was like assuming initially, oh, that's a fucked up stone. Like they were trying to make one and it didn't work. But now that I'm rewatching this, I'm like, wait, they collected it like they needed it back. Which, I mean, even if it's a failed stone, I guess you would take it just to be like, well, let's see how close we got, you know? But none of the stones that we've seen anywhere else are of that texture. Are those not real stones? Or are they just different because they were like, the bodies were created around them? Like, does a living body take a different type of Philosopher's Stone? Are there different types of them? I guess. And I know that you guys pretty much like can't tell me that, but I also want to know. B. Morris says, sadistic as this sounds, that was probably the kind of doubt some of those first 11 guys had were following Bradley because he didn't. Yeah, I guess so. That stone was the injection and it was rejected. Yes, long time ago, but Dr. Marco's stone was liquid. He kept it in a vial. Oh, I didn't remember that. And I guess like, I wonder how he used it to heal. Because, like, obviously injecting this shit is not going well. So what was Marco doing with it? Because, yeah, he was successful at helping people. But, so Roy starts asking him, why would you choose to be a homunculus? Is there a way that you can go back to being human? And Bradley is like, wait, go back. Wait, do you think I want to not be a homunculus anymore? I'm sorry to have given you that impression somehow, but no, I don't want that at all. I really like being a homunculus. I'm pretty proud of it, actually. Like, I am something new and better and stronger than you guys. So no, I don't know if I can go back, but I certainly wouldn't if I could. And this just is such a weird moment of, I never expected him to put all of his cards on the table like this. And because he's got Hawkeye sort of under his control at this point, I guess that he's going to be able to just get away with this. But what is he going to have Roy do from now on? Because he's not firing the guy. You can't fire somebody who knows this sort of stuff. I would assume he would kill him, but he's explaining everything, so he's clearly not intending to do that. You don't, unless you're a Bond villain, you don't explain before you kill somebody. Bradley does not give me the vibe of that kind of person who would indulge in that sort of thing. So what is Roy's job going to be? Like, I really want to know what's happening here. So, okay, we're going to back up a little bit here and go back to the fight with Ed and Envy. Like, Ling is in this a bit, but it's really mostly about them. And you guys, this is like worse than last week. I am really struggling with Envy's form. It's so bad. It's so upsetting. So, like, it already was awful, just in terms of sheer appearance, right? It's just a hideous beast made out of, like, hundreds, thousands of different heads, faces, arms, reaching out, constantly seeming in this, like, low-level agony. It's really, really bad. And yet, tell me how it's worse when Ed winds up hearing all of these voices calling to him for help, asking for him to please kill them. The pain won't stop. There's little children. Envy manages to do a voice like his brother. You don't see, or no, not his brother. I'm sorry, no. It's the little girl that got paired in the horrible episode. I can't remember the girl's name, but he hears that, and it's just like one after another, all of these really gut punch sort of human moments coming from the mouths of these like creatures that are humanoid, but they look like alien or monstrous. I hate it, y'all. So Ed winds up sort of he's about to attack Envy. And Nina, thank you guys. When Envy uses Nina's voice, the fight seems to almost entirely go out of him. And Envy grabs him and like slams him to the floor. And this is when he turns and he sees a fraction of a sculpture that's like on the side, fallen to the side. It's a big piece of a ruin. And at this point he says, "Ed, I'm sorry." And then Envy opens their mouth, and all of these like strands, ropes of tongue flesh come down like arms and heads, and they wrap around him and say, "Come on, Ed, come die with us." And he doesn't resist. It's like all of the fight just went out of him in that moment when he heard Nina's voice. It's awful to watch him just get like surrounded by these faces that scoop him up and carry him in the way that they do. That is a really intense moment. Like, yeah. So the Envy slams their mouth shut on him, and poor Ling is just off to the side like, dude, oh my God, assuming like, is he dead? Is it over? But thankfully with these weirdo homunculi, it's not over most of the time. There's still more shit happening. So we go into Envy's mouth, and Ed's got like the flesh sort of rustling around and by him, like he's being absorbed into the center of Envy's being, and he sees the Philosopher's Stone. And he's like, that's weird. I forgot about that whole thing. It's his core. And after all my searching, it's right here in front of me. And he sees the position that he's laying in with his hand held out. And it's a weird moment, guys. He's looking at the stone. He remembers the piece of monument that he saw when he was on the floor. He remembers the monument that he saw at, what is the name? Xerxes? And his eyes get big, and then he busts his way out of Envy's mouth. I did not see the connection between the piece of the monument he saw and the one at the ruins. There was nothing that looked alike about them to me. And I don't know if maybe if I just paused it and really looked at them, I would see that their shapes match up. But this is the third time now that I have watched that, and I don't see it still. So I am completely fine with him putting these pieces together. That's no big deal. But I was just wondering if anybody else failed to see the connection, because I truly did not. I was just like, what is he even thinking here? So yeah, he says, open up, Envy, your breath is killing me, and kicks from the outside, or from the inside, and says, I think I've got a way to get us out of here. And I love that both Ling and Envy just like gasp for a moment. It's just like, wait, what? So then he explains, I can't transmute the dead, but what would happen if I transmute myself? I can use this transmutation circle to deconstruct myself, and then I'll just put myself back together, and it will open the portal. If you think that Gluttony is a defective portal of truth, I bet that if we pass through the real one, we'll wind up in our own reality. I'll open up the real portal, and then you two jump through it. Envy says, what happens if it goes wrong? And he says it'll rebound onto the person who performed it, which would be me. And Ling is just like, well, I mean, if you say this is going to work, I don't know anything about this shit. So, okay. I mean, I will leave it to you. And then we have this moment that I wasn't expecting and had not understood or put together at all. Ed says to Envy, the partial mural I saw in Xerxes would have looked more or less like this. This is the first thing that caught my eye. The symbol for God is written upside down, and beneath that is the two-headed dragon, the alchemical symbol for complete life form, which means that this basically translates to, I will strike God to earth and become a perfect being. And then there's this. This piece takes it to the next level, an image of the lion swallowing the sun, symbolizing the Philosopher's Stone. The stone is made with living humans. Isn't that correct? And Envy says, yeah. How could a nation as advanced as Xerxes fall, let alone in a single night? What happened to its citizens? These stone fragments, you put them here to hide the evidence. You sacrificed all of Xerxes and turned them into a philosopher's stone. Okay. This feels like he just did some like calculus. And I'm out here still trying to do addition. Where did he get this? This just feels like it's out of left field for me. And I'm not like mad about the information of the reveal. That works. But it's just the way that he arrived at this conclusion. It feels like he put all of this together in seconds with just the barest information, and I don't even like, clearly he is correct, and Envy just goes on to sort of confirm his suspicions, but I could not figure out how he got here. So like, I'm assuming that probably in the manga this is handled in a different way, where the information that we have so far is a little bit more plentiful. And so we're able to begin to piece things together ourselves a bit. But I just wanted to like check in with everybody. I'm not the only one who sort of felt like, wait, hold on at this point. Am I? I'm not sure. When he says like, you hid this piece of this like formation here to hide the evidence. I don't even know how that works. Is that hiding the evidence? Like, would leaving that there really be a giveaway to anybody? I just didn't, this whole assertion that he is making feels like there's a bunch of disparate pieces being put together that I can't even really like confirm the premise, never mind the outcome, you know? He says, I want to know who used this to transmute himself, who slaughtered the population of a whole country, who created all of you, who is trying to make himself powerful enough to surpass God. It was your father, wasn't it? Tell me, Envy. And Envy is basically like, look, I'll fucking tell you after you get us out of here. How about that? If this works, then I will share. But I am sick and tired of waiting around. I know that you need something to open the portal with. So go ahead and take the Philosopher's Stone, because that's something that you're going to need to use. This should work. All of these like writhing, screaming faces. So this is when he says, wait, all the bodies are the bodies of the people? And Envy says, yeah, kind of. Like their bodies really crumbled quite a while ago, actually, and so did their minds. And all that's left is energy to be consumed. They don't even remember what they looked like when they were alive. Now, this was sort of confusing to me because even though it doesn't actually kill Lust, pulling out the Philosopher's Stone from Lust's body did make her like deconstruct. It just like, is it just basically a matter of time before they sprout again, basically? And that's like a fairly reliable reaction, I guess. But yeah, Envy sees Ed hesitate about using the stone because it's got the energy of so many beings in it. And Envy says, that's over and done with. This is like being weird about throwing a bundle of logs on a fire because you pity the tree they came from. These souls can't go back to being human. That's not even a possibility. So you're going to have to be logical about this and not let your emotions decide how you handle it. You can either do this or not, but this was your idea, and there's one way to accomplish this. So, at this point, Ed tells Ling, I'm going to do it, but I need you to agree to tell Amestris what everybody is up to. And Ling says, I'm not that concerned about Amestris. It's not my country. What? And he when Ed says what, he quickly follows it up with you have people who want you back, right? Well, then just come back. I'm sorry, sir. That feels a lot like you're deflecting from talking about the fact that you don't give a fuck about an entire country's worth of people. I don't feel like you're addressing the real issue here. And I would like to return to the matter at hand because that was a fucked up thing to say. And it's it doesn't feel like he's joking. It doesn't, I don't know. There's just something about it that it was just you're just going to say that? You know, I think it's meant to be motivating, but it doesn't feel motivating. It just feels like a shitty thing to say. So, I'm sorry. B. Moore says, So the thing is, the first anime opening had a 4-second scene showing the full mural. So it's supposed to be much more recognizable to the viewer because they've seen it a dozen times. Side note, it's probably safe to watch that first opening now. I don't think it spoils anything, but you should ask Owen or someone you trust to verify. Okay. Yeah, I won't risk it yet, and I won't even trust Owen. If you guys want to watch it and tell me, but Owen, like, he isn't watching along with me every time, so he's lost track of where I am. And we were talking about it the other day, and he was hedging a lot, and I finally was like, are you trying to not tell me about how King Bradley's a homunculus? And he's like, oh, you got there already? I thought that was like way further along. So yeah, I can't really ask his opinion on that, but if you guys want to tell me, that's fine. So yeah, this, like I said, I think Ling is just trying to be like, no, I'm just trying to give you, motivation. But it just feels like, wow, that was cold-blooded. It doesn't feel like the time for tough love right now. Like, he's already going to do this. So Ed says, all right, I'm sorry. I'm going to use you. He's talking to the bodies that he is watching writhe in agony. And then we have this moment where Ling says the pose he makes when he transmutes, I knew it reminded me of something. It almost looks like he's praying. And it has him like clapping his hands together and then pressing them to the ground. And I wonder what the significance of Ling noticing this is, because it's obvious that things are different where Ling comes from. And I'm still not entirely sure the significance of Ling's addition to the cast. So Ed uses his ability to open the portal, and Ling says, you better know what you're doing. I'm trusting you. And steps in, and so does Envy, and they both begin to fly apart in those tidy little sort of pixel squares like last time. Ling even says, this feels like when Gluttony ate us. And Ed looks around and watches all of these bodies evaporating and is saying to himself, thank you. And that's this really relates for me back to the whole episode where it's him and Al on that island and they have to kill an animal and eat it. And the difficulty because they have compassion and they don't want to. But when they do, they're so grateful. And that's the philosophy that I like to think I would have. You don't relish the ending of a life. That's not fun. But you can be deeply appreciative of that sacrifice supporting your life and respect that, at least, even if there's no undoing it or changing the reality of what you need to stay alive, So we see the whole traveling down these weird memory ribbons, and he's trying not to struggle. He's trying to just allow himself to be drawn into the portal. And when he does, we see Truth sitting there, and he's got an arm and a leg that are flesh colored now, no longer all white. And it's weird. Truth is like, what's going on? You're not even trying to get your body back, are you? Word? What does that mean? So then we see Ed. He sails through Truth, right? And he's in a ton of pain. He sort of crash lands, it seems like. And there's a door behind him. And then there's a door across as well. And he's like, wait a second. There are 2 portals. I don't remember this. What? And then he sees Al. And it was so jarring because Al looks so much like Ed that for a second I was misunderstanding what was happening. And Al is really, really skinny and bony. It's clear that he is drawing just as much energy as he needs to stay alive. And he is just like almost starving to death, and he's totally naked and exposed and vulnerable, and it's just painful to look at him. He's got these big haunted eyes, and Ed starts running across to him, and the portal behind him opens, and there's this like giggling, and all of those like weird black ribbon arms begin to come out and grab at him. And he's telling Al, come with me. You've got to come with me. And Al says, I can't. I can only leave with my own soul. I'm sorry, but I can't go with you. And you can see the moment where Ed realizes like that makes sense. And he starts to be dragged away. The doors are almost closed. And then he like punches through them and yells, I am going to come back for you. So wait for me. Be ready, because it's coming. We are going to figure this out. Look at me. I promise. And it's actually a sweet moment because it's very clear that Al believes him. It's like an awful moment for him of just having to like watch him get dragged away. But you can tell that Al heard him and was like, oh, maybe I will get out of here after all eventually. Because, you know, if I were Al by now, yeah, I think I'd probably have like lost some hope. I think. Pretty sure. So, y'all, that's rough. I'm excited, though, to have had confirmation that their theory is correct. The thing that I had initially was, that's not really Al. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is, because I don't trust anything, I was like, you're just being tricked. The like truth just made Al look like he was there to like draw you in and give you hope. But when Al responds to him and says, I can only go with my own soul, that was when I was like, oh, okay, this is real. I just don't trust any of the things. So I'm always just like, no, this is a trick. This is set up. This is fucked up. So, okay, let's talk now about what's going on with Al being, led around by, Gluttony. So we have, Scar and the little girl who are still looking for, is it Mei Chang? I will never get their names right. I swear to God. I'm sorry, everybody. They're looking for the little baby panda, Xiao Mei. Guys, this little girl, when she is marching with indignation about how they stole Xiao Mei, that shit is the most adorable marching I've ever seen in my life. She is ready to start a fight. It is just going down. And they stop at the end of an alley, and she sees Xiao Mei hanging out on Al's shoulder and starts to run toward them. She is certain, throughout all of this, by the way, that Xiao Mei is being mistreated by Al. And she's about to run down there, and Scar is like, no, wait a second. Do you see the fat guy with them? That dude is a homunculus, and he's like unkillable. And I'm not entirely sure we're going to be able to do anything to him. We may not want to just run into this. And he has a moment thinking to himself, like, what's the armored kid doing with him? What's the connection here? And Gluttony opens a doorway into this like weird building going downward into the basement. And eventually they do follow him in, and they stand there for a minute. And the little girl says, like, something's wrong in this country. And I knew that when I got here. Like, I could tell, I could feel something was wrong. But in here, it is really strong. I feel something sort of crawling around underneath us. Do you feel that? And before Scar can reply, we cut to Al and Xiao Mei and Gluttony. And Xiao Mei is sweating and clearly like really scared. And at one point, Al reaches up to sort of like nuzzle her with his finger, and Xiao Mei just grabs his entire finger like really scared. And Gluttony is saying to him, don't worry, you don't have to worry about the guardians or whatever slicing you up because you're with me. But there's definitely bones all over the place. It is very clear a lot of people have not made it through here. The gatekeepers, that's what it is. The gatekeepers did all that. They won't rip you up as long as you're with me. That's the line. For some reason, they won't rip you up. That's just very evocative. And Al looks up and sees all of these red eyes and just tells himself, you know what? We're just going to pretend those aren't there. And Gluttony is like, it's not too far, just ahead. And this was when I started to be like, okay, wait. Is Gluttony as innocent as he seems to be? Or is this all purposeful? Like, it feels like Gluttony is just kind of like, you know, haplessly going along with what Al suggests because he doesn't know of a better idea. And so he's just like, well, okay, this guy seems to be like somewhat reasonable and he's suggesting some things that I can't see the harm in. So I suppose I'll just do as he says because I don't have a better idea. But I can't help but wonder at this point, is that actually what's going on? Or is Gluttony playing stupider than he actually is in order to lure Al down here? And even if that were true, would Al not go with him still? Because Al is desperate. As far as he knows, Ed's been fucking swallowed and may never be able to come back unless he goes down here and figures out what the fuck. So I kind of guess that even if this were a trap and even if Al were aware of that, he'd probably just be like, well, oh well, sucks to suck. Gotta go though. Gotta figure it out. So he's whispering to himself, like, I know that you're still alive. Just hang on. And we cut, to then, Mei Chang. Is it Mei Chang, guys? I know it's Xiao Mei for the baby panda, but what is the name of the girl herself? But she is like fighting all of these monsters along with Scar. There are like big, what look like eels or something. It is a weird sequence that goes by really fast. Mei Chang. Okay, so I was like close. And they're just like apparently, getting attacked by all of these gatekeepers. So, I mean, they're making it through, though. Apparently, there hasn't been a couple of fighters like them. Like this little girl. Which, look, I'm perfectly willing to accept that she is extremely tough. Tougher than me, I will grant you. But I am surprised that she can stand up to gatekeepers. Evidently, which is what it looks like is happening. We don't get to the end of this section, really. We just get to the moment when Gluttony opens up the double doors at the end of the hall and all of this light pours out. And that's where this story ends. The storyline like cuts off. We don't see anything further with Scar and Mei Chang, if I can remember. So yeah, this, I just really am getting more and more anxious as we get closer because I'm starting to mistrust my original assessment of Gluttony's motivations here because I just don't trust anything. And we're just going to keep returning to that. And I like, even if it isn't a trap, even if Gluttony isn't purposefully causing this to go left, I do not see how Al walks through those doors and it doesn't just go left because that's where it's going to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can he walk through those doors and walk back out again? I am just not seeing it. So I just wait and see, I guess. And based on the way all of this went with Ed and his transmutation, it looks to me like that worked. I Yeah, I want to understand a little bit better what he's accusing Envy of, because I guess what the thing is supposed to have been is that they created a massive transmutation circle, like the guy was attempting on the city at the start of the first episode, unless I'm wrong. He was like setting things up to turn the entire city into a transmutation circle and like kill everybody for the sake of a philosopher's stone. If that were true, I think that I was assuming he was already working with the homunculi at that point, but Bradley kills him. So maybe it was just that he was like given a stone somehow and he just like kind of went left and did some shit that he was not approved to do. But that setup seems really familiar and similar to what Envy is being accused of or somebody is being accused of doing. But Envy's got like the actual sorts of like body energy, it seems like, trapped in a very specific way. So I keep imagining Envy being what resulted, and I'm not sure that's true. I just don't really know why it would manifest so differently in Envy than it manifests in everybody else, unless there's like, you know, an additional level to how Envy was made that would perhaps explain that, which of course I don't know any of that yet. But yeah, I'm just, if I stop and think about the guy in the beginning of the first episode, it seemed like he was setting something up that it would feel like would benefit the homunculi. So why would Bradley be doing a little versus there? It seems like he would either this guy is not on his side, or Bradley would have given him space and gotten his own ass out of town before it started to happen, you know? I don't know, because the guy did have a philosopher's stone, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because we see it like break up and it's not quite correct. Is that... I feel like it was like... It was not completely functional. It was like a kind of cast-off stone. So let's see. Beam Moore says the first episode is anime only, but the implication was that the country had some dark secret and he was trying to destroy Central to stop them, not make a transmutation stone. I thought that, wasn't he though? I thought he was making a transmutation circle. We've since discovered, yeah, the country seems to be involved in some dark stuff. Not make a new philosopher's stone. Okay. But he was trying to make a transmutation. So he was just trying to kill everybody, basically. It wasn't even about that being like a sacrificial on behalf of like a greater goal. That was the goal, I guess. Okay. Well, I had better wrap up, but I have a lot of questions. Really like this episode. Very curious about where it all is going. I really don't know. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the coverage. And thank you, Max, again so much for commissioning this one. And soon I will see you again with a new episode. So until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.